Hi everyone. I had some comments from someone who had seen my previous video on this Aeronaut Classic boat, asking a few questions, so I thought I'd do a walk around of it. It's a couple of years down the road now, or down the river, and so I thought I'd do a walk around just to show all the parts, what I did different from the kit, and anything I'd do differently, I guess. So here it is. Still in decent condition after a couple of years. I've only used it a handful of times, to be honest, but it's always been really good and always got some good comments from anyone who happened to be walking by whilst I was using it, either on ponds or rivers. So here it is. So the top is yacht varnished. It's mahogany, and underneath I've used white enamel, which I did with a brush, and actually, having recently done some enamel painting with spray, I would say go with the brush, because actually you get a better, stronger finish, and you can polish it up a bit better, whereas spraying it tends to go on in such thin layers that you end up having to buy multiple cans, and the finish I just don't think is going to be as good. So let's have a look inside. So, in terms of the electronics, I've got a brushless outrunner motor, which is a 2200 kV. I've also got a different coupler from the one that comes with the kit. The kit comes with just basically a rubber piece of pipe. And I've also upgraded the prop shaft. As you can see, it's pretty decent, although it doesn't come with bearings or anything like that, but it is certainly an upgrade on the one that comes with the kit, which is pretty thin, to be honest. Now the thing that I did do, and I would do differently, is that the length of the prop shaft plus the coupler, in my case, is too long, and therefore I had to mount the motor further forward than I would have intended to. It should really be connected to this bar here, but actually had to be at the back. And then, I can't remember what the issue was, but I had an issue, and because of the way I'd mounted it, I couldn't get access to take the motor off easily, so I had to cut it out, and then I remounted it. So, not ideal, but actually it runs just fine. But yeah, so I would go with a shorter prop shaft, taking into account this is quite a chunky coupler, which itself is quite long. It's probably about 40 mils long, something like that. So what else have I got to show you? So we've got a water-cooled ESC, which is Sea King 25 amp brushless ESC for boats, of course. Yeah, so as you can see, it's water cooled, so we've got some 4mm aeration pipe there, which is held on, it's clamped in place with some zip ties, and then it goes into the back of the boat. I'll show you underneath in a second. Just using a cheap 9-gram micro servo, mini servo on the standard rudder, and that's absolutely fine. You don't need a whole lot of power there. And my receiver, I use Spectrum, so I've got a Spectrum receiver in there. And Dean's, personally I use Dean's on my batteries, and then batteries I've been using just relatively cheap 2S lipos, about 4,000 milliamp hours, just fits in there nicely. I just put some padding in there so that the battery doesn't move around at all. That's probably it for the inside. Oh, one thing to note, as I did buy a fabric ensign for the back, just better than the sort of stickers or whatever that comes with the boat. Just looks a bit more authentic. So let's turn her upside down. Now under here, so I've got the standard rudder, And then there you can see the intake for the water cooling. Now I read, I was doing some research, that it should be placed not directly behind the prop but actually off centre, so that it gets most of the flow, because the flow is coming off the outer parts of the prop rather than the central part, which has a bit of a void. As you can see, there's the finish on the enamel, which is pretty good. And then I've got the output from the water cooling just there in the centre. I was wondering whether I'd placed it in the right place, to be honest, because actually at that part of the boat, at speed anyway, you tend to get a sort of a void behind the boat, so you don't get any suction, as it were. So maybe off the side might have been better. Don't know. Seems to work fine, and to be honest, I don't think it generates enough heat to really warrant having a water-cooled ESC, but it's certainly got a lot of poke at top speed. What else? I did have a slight issue relatively recently, where after a run I found that there was a lot of water inside the boat, and it was far more than I would expect to get through the top. But you obviously will get some, because the seat doesn't actually seal. Doesn't seal in here. You can see that there's plenty of space for water to get in if it splashes over the top. But there was a lot of water in there, and I couldn't work out why at first. Carried on running it, and then realised that some of the deck had come away from the hull. And I think the reason for that is that I'd used wood glue for some of the build rather than epoxy. And although the wood glue is okay for short periods of immersion, it didn't like longer periods and therefore seemed to break down. So I'll definitely recommend you use epoxy for all the gluing if you can. Maybe you get two different types. You might get a quick setting one and a slower one as well. Finish on the deck is pretty good. It's my first effort, so I was pretty proud of it. But you know, you could go further and keep wet sanding it back, and keep varnishing and wet sanding and varnish and wet sand until you get it to a mirror finish. You can still see a little bit of the grain of the wood, but it's pretty good, to be honest. Another thing I did was to mount this hatch at the back with a small magnet. So you see the magnet here, so it just keeps it in place quite firmly. So you see when I put that in there, and then it all pulls itself down, and there's no way that can come up, even if you turn it upside down. So that's probably about it. But if you do have any other questions, do let me know. Oh yeah, just on the stand there. The stand's handy, and I just put some of the offcuts from the sort of faux leather that comes for the seat, and I added some padding there just to protect the hull when it's on the stand. Okay, as I say, any questions, let me know, and I will endeavour to answer any questions you have in the comments below. Thanks, bye.